Namo Buddhaya. Welcome back to another video. From today's video, we're going to discuss about one of the major problems that we go through in our mind when it comes to the stress and anxiety. And that is the what if scenarios, the catastrophizing of mind. Now, this state of mind can affect for many people, and they suffer a lot when these kind of thought patterns hit their mind, right? So what if scenarios are like, you imagine all the worst case scenarios in your mind, like what if that happened to me, what if everything went wrong, what if they're cheating me, what if the people all around are up to no good. So we expect and we create these scenarios in our mind and we suffer in it. Okay. And our brain is pretty good at creating these scenarios in our mind, right? So that is why we need to learn how to deal with these kind of thoughts when they come into our mind. Not every time we get these kind of thoughts, but when there are certain times that we get these kind of mental states, and it's very painful, and people suffer a lot in these kind of thought patterns. And this is where the Buddhist practice of mindfulness comes in handy, right? In Buddhist practice, we call mindfulness as Sati. Sati is the bringing your mind to this present state and understanding the reality as it is, right? So when you understand the true nature of reality, when you understand that everything, every experience, every mental state has one intrinsic nature, and that is the changing. Every mental state, every experience is subjected to changing, right? But before doing that, there are certain things that we need to understand and we need to think and practice to deal with these kind of catastrophizing thoughts, right? These what-if scenarios. The first practice, we need mindfulness to understand this, because we need to catch this thought, right? Without you catching this thought and understanding and realizing this thought, you cannot do anything, right? You cannot deal with anything that you don't understand about. So the first step is to know that you're in the mental state of catastrophizing, right? What if scenarios. So the first step is to understand and challenge your thought, right? How to challenge your thoughts. Now, in this practice, we need mindfulness. We need to catch this thought, right? And understand as it is. And then ask the question from yourself that, is this the reality, or is this just another distortion of my mind about the reality of the life, right? Because the mind and our brain can distort the reality in many ways. It can create many scenarios, but in reality, the problem is very, very little. Right? Sometimes there is no problem. I've seen this a lot of times in mind, that when we don't have much things to worry about, right? When the life goes smoothly, we worry about even about the little things in life. Okay? So that is why first we need to understand, is this reality, or is this another distortion of my mind about the reality? Right? When you understand this, when you come to this present moment and understand what reality is, then you find that there are very few things that we need to worry about, and many things, right? 99% of what we go through is just another distortion of our mind, right? So challenging your thought is very important when you deal with these kinds of mental states. And once you understand the reality, now then you can ask from yourself that, what can I do about it? Is there anything that is under my control that I can take some actions to change this state, right? And then you understand that there are certain things in life that are under your control and that are not under your control, that are out of your control. So then you have to realize that the things that are under your control is totally worth worrying and totally worth taking actions. And the things that are not under your control, we don't have anything to do about it. And also we can't change that state. So what we can do is we can accept it, right? Once you realize the reality, one thing that you can do is to understand what is in your control and what is not in your control. And that is the next thing that you have to do. And once you understand the present state of mind, now you can add a little mindful practice to your life, right? Such as breathing meditation, right? A mindful in-breath and out-breath will help you to relieve your stress. Okay, this is something the Buddha introduced us to do, and Buddha emphasizes to do, to stop the chattering of your mind, to stop this restlessness of your mind. Because once you're in these kind of mental states, one thing that happens to your mind is you become restless. So a mindful breathing practice will help you to relieve the anxiety and relieve the stress from your mind and become more peaceful and calm. And there's another practice that you can do, and this is not directly mentioned in Buddhism, but you can set a time to worry about things, right? So what you have to do when the worryings and when these regrets and these kind of thought patterns come into your mind, say to yourself, okay, wait, there is a time in my day to worry about these things. So wait until that. I will wait until that. And when that time comes, I will do my worrying. I will do my regretting. So what you do, you set an alarm to yourself that I will worry in the future. So then set a maybe time period during the day that you sit down and think, okay, what is there in my mind and in my life to worry about, right? And to check the reality. And then you spend a good time. You don't spend that time worrying and regretting. You spend that time analyzing and not overthinking, but analyzing and realizing about the reality of the life and the present state of life, so that you find there are very few things to worry about in life. And all the other things that our mind has created inside our mind are just nothing but distortions of reality. So these are the few practices that you can add to your life. Whenever you get these kind of thought patterns, practicing these tips will help you to ease up your mental state. So practice this and make your mind peaceful and calm. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome and welcome back to another video. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever lied to someone? Well, I know what you're thinking about. You will say to me, well, what are you talking about? We all have lied, right? That is the nature of all of us. Yes, it is the common human nature for all of us to lie, right? I got this question from one of the parents who was visiting our monastery. She asked from me, like, my daughter has this serious bad habit that she always lies to me, right? No matter what she does, she never tells the truth. What's the reason for this and how can I stop this? Then I asked from her, have you ever punished your child or scolded or yelled at your child just because she did a bad thing, she did a wrong thing, and she told the truth? She told you what she did. Have you ever done that? Then she said, yes, I have done it many times, that I have scolded and I have punished my child just because she told the truth, right? And I told her, this is the biggest reason why children lie. And this is the biggest reason that people lie, most of the time. People lie because they're afraid of the punishments, right? And also, people lie because they are being punished in the past, even though they told the truth, right? So that is why I always advise for parents and people. No matter who are the people who you're living with, they will do mistakes, they will do wrong things. That is the human nature, right? But make them understand, no matter what bad thing or what wrong thing you did, tell the truth. If you tell the truth, there will be no punishment, there will be no anger in it. If you tell the truth, there will be love, affection, guidance, and understanding. That is what we need to practice, right? People lie because they're afraid of being punished and being afraid of that hurt and pain. And also one of the biggest reasons that people lie is because they're afraid of losing things. Okay? So if we can make an environment for people around us, for our loved ones, that there is this understanding, there is this love and care and guidance, so that they will always tell the truth to you, right? So I want to introduce you to this wonderful practice that we have in monks community, right? Because as monks, right, when we become monks, we get 227 precepts to practice, right? Sometimes these precepts are broken by ourselves, right? Most of the time it is because of lack of mindfulness or lack of awareness, right? Mistakes can happen. If we broke some precept, there is this practice called apatideshana. Apatideshana means if we did a wrong thing, or if we break a precept, what we have to do is we have to go to one of our brother monks and open up it, right? That means tell the mistake that we have done and tell them that I know and I see this mistake as a mistake, and hereafter I am trying my best to be disciplined, right? And the response from the other party is the most wonderful thing, right? The response always will be that I know and I see this mistake in you as a mistake. I understand that you have done a mistake. So from hereafter, you will be forgiven and you will be guided and you will get the help from the monks community to be disciplined, right? And that is what we all need to have in all of our families and people who we are dealing with, right? We need to have that understanding and guidance and love and care. And then people will always be truthful, right? Because people don't understand what are the bad effects and adverse effects of this lying. Most of the time people say, okay, I can say white lies, right? I can say white lies, so it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't make any bad thing, or it doesn't hurt me. Well, white lies do hurt you, right? Although you said it just because it is a small thing and doesn't hurt anyone, that is the start of a mistake. When you get comfortable with white lies, right, little by little you will get comfortable with big lies. So that is why we should not, that is why the Buddha said, when the Buddha defines that you should stay away from lying, when the Buddha said you should stay away from lying, Buddha never referred to any kind of colors of lie, or white lie, or red lie, or any kind of lie. Buddha said, be truthful, stay away from lying, right? So how can we understand this lying? The lying should be understood that the words that we speak with the intention of fooling someone, right? Putting him in a difficult situation and fooling someone, right? So these kind of words, we should not be spoken, and we should be always truthful, right? Being truthful in the beginning, it will a little bit hurt a little bit. It will be difficult a little bit. But being truthful has many, many benefits, right? So that is why we need to understand that lying is not good in any way, right? No matter it is a white lie or a red lie or any kind of lie, lie is harmful for all of us, right? If we can try to be truthful, if we can live our life in a truthful way, it will give you a huge satisfaction about your life. When you think about your life, how truthful you have lived, then it will give you a good sense of like happiness into your life, okay? So if you can create an environment of understanding, love and care and guidance, so then the people around you will not lie to you, okay? So tell to your children, no matter what you do, tell the truth. If you tell the truth, there will be no punishment, there will be no scolding, and only there will be love, care, and guidance. So keep this little advice in your mind and be happy. Now Buddhaya, welcome everyone to another video. From today's video, I would like to share some thoughts about going for refuge to these three jewels or three refuges in Buddhism. Now traditionally, all Buddhists go for refuge to these three gems or three jewels. And in other words, we call them three refuges, right? And it is a traditional way, and most of the time, the traditional Buddhists, they do it as a chanting, right? whenever they do their prayers, they say, Buddhang saranang gacchami, I go for refuge to the Buddha. Dhammang saranang gacchami, I go for refuge to the Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings. Sanghang saranang gacchami, I go for refuge to the Sangha, the monastic and the spiritual community. So one can think, okay, it is same like the other religions, You go for refuge, you believe in this Buddha and his teachings and the monastic community. It is same. But if you take a closer look at going for refuge, the process of going for refuge, there's a clear reason. There's a clear reason why we do this, right? And also we have to remember that just because we chanted Buddhang saranang gacchami, or just because we chanted that I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, doesn't mean that you truly go for refuge to the Buddha. Okay? So there's a way to do that. So let's discuss how we should do this. First of all, what are these three jewels? The first jewel, or the first refuge in Buddhism, is called Buddha. Buddha is the historical Buddha, the greatest teacher who taught the Buddhist teachings to all of us. The greatest teacher who taught the reality of life. So we consider him as the teacher, right? The guiding light of our life. So why we go for refuge to the Buddha? Sometimes some people can say, okay, now you're believing the Buddha as a god. No, it is not the same way, because Buddha wasn't a god, and nor did the Buddha claim himself to be a god, right? So the Buddha was a simple human like all of us who achieved something beyond that an average human could achieve, the liberation. So why we go for refuge to the Buddha? It is because he's the biggest role model of our life, right? So to have an inspiration from a character, we go for refuge to the Buddha. When we go through the difficult times and hard times in our life, we can always relate to the Buddha's life and say, okay, if Buddha faced such kind of adversities and difficulties, how would Buddha do this, right? So then you can follow the Buddha's life and Buddha's role model. You take the Buddha as the role model, and it becomes the biggest inspiration for our life. So that is why we go for refuge to the Buddha, right? So the correct way to go for refuge to the Buddha is to consider the Buddha as the biggest role model of our life, and to learn from his character and to follow his character as well. Okay? Or even though we cannot follow his fullest character, at least we can try some of his amazing qualities in his life. Okay? So that is the first thing and the first reason why we go for refuge to the Buddha, right? And then the Dhamma, that is the second jewel or the second refuge in Buddhism. Dhamma is the Buddha's teachings. Now, why we go for refuge to the Dhamma? It is to consider it as the framework of our spiritual practice. Buddha taught his amazing teachings for 45 years. And these teachings we consider as the Dhamma, right? So these teachings gives us amazing help to live our life and to understand the true meaning behind our life, right? So to provide this framework, provide this path, we go for refuge to the Dhamma. Now, how to truly go for refuge to the Dhamma is to practice it, right? Follow the Buddha's teachings and practice it. And that is the correct way to go for refuge to the Dhamma. Okay? So first we take the role model and we follow his character, and also we follow his teachings, the Buddha's teachings. And third jewel, or the third refuge, is Sangha, the monastic community, the spiritual community, who have achieved the levels of spirituality. Okay? Why we go for refuge to the Sangha, or this monastic community, or the spiritual community, is to give us the support for our spiritual practice. Because we all know we can't do this all alone. We need a community. Everyone needs a community of people to grow. So when we get together and when we get in touch with this spiritual community, we can take advice from them. We can take the experiential advice from them and grow ourselves, right? So as a help, as a support for our spiritual practice, we go for refuge to the Sangha, the monastic community. So this is why we go for refuge. And this is the real reason behind going for refuge to the triple gems. So I hope you got some idea about the 3 refuges in Buddhism. So I wish you all, may all of you be healthy, happy and peaceful. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to another video. Today, from this video, let's talk about the benefits of practicing mindfulness and how mindfulness benefits for our daily Buddhist practice. Now, what should be practiced in Buddhism as Buddhist practice is Sila, Samadhi, and Prajna. These are the 3 practices that we practice in all through Buddhism. In whatever the state we are in, we practice these 3 practices. Sila is the virtuous behavior or moral conduct. And we've discussed about Sila in a separate video. If you haven't watched it, and if you don't know what Sila is, you can watch it right here. So Sila is basically the ethical and the moral conduct, or in another word, virtuous behavior, or being disciplined by your body and by your words. So mindfulness helps us to practice Sila in a good way, in a more productive way. And also the second practice is Samadhi. Samadhi is the mental concentration, being able to be in practice the one-pointedness in our mind and to practice that tranquility in our mind. It's called the Samadhi. And final practice is Prajna. Prajna means the wisdom, understanding about the true nature of life, and fully understanding about the 3 marks of existence: the anicca, the impermanence; dukkha, that's the suffering; and anatta is the non-self. So how mindfulness helps to practice these things? First of all, let's talk about how mindfulness benefits to practice the Sila. Now, Sila is the virtuous behavior, as we said before. So before talking about these things, let's learn about what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is the practice of or ability to be fully aware in this present moment with more wholesome mindset. When you practice mindfulness, it is really, really easy to practice Sila. Why? Because Sila is all about being disciplined from your body and from your words. So if you're mindful about your bodily actions, what you are going to do, okay, and what you are going to say, then you keep a good gatekeeper to your actions. Now, Sati is oftenly referred to as mindfulness in Buddhism, and the Buddha said that Sati is like a gatekeeper to your mind, or the mindfulness is like a gatekeeper to your mind. So what does a gatekeeper do? The gatekeeper watches and recognizes what comes in or who comes in and who goes out a certain place. So practicing mindfulness is like keeping a gatekeeper to your actions and your words and your thoughts. So if you are aware of what you are doing, right, and if you know before what you are doing, and if you know what you're doing before doing, and if you know what you're saying before saying, by being mindful and by being aware, then it is very easy to control the unwholesome actions and unwholesome thoughts and unwholesome words that occurs in our life. And this helps us to be disciplined from our body, to be disciplined from our words, and will be easy to practice the virtuous behavior, and our practice of Sila will be even more productive. So that is how the mindfulness helps us to practice Sila. And also the second practice, how mindfulness helps us to practice Samadhi, or the concentration. Now, when you take the 4 foundations of mindfulness, there are 4 foundations of mindfulness according to Buddhism. Being mindful about your body is one foundation. That's the first foundation. Second one is being mindful about your feelings. And the third one is being mindful about your mental actions or the thoughts. And then being mindful about the mental objects, right? Like such as concepts and ideas and thoughts. So these 4 foundations of mindfulness, in the beginning, the Buddha teaches us how to be tranquilized. Okay, how to concentrate your mind. For an example, if you refer to Kayanupassana, the first practice of Kayanupassana is Anapanasati, or the breathing meditation, being mindful about the breathing. So the Buddha doesn't dive into the deep end at first to realize the true nature or the impermanence nature of the breath. The first thing that the Buddha says us or instruct us to do is to be mindfully breathe in and mindfully breathe out. Okay? Just be mindful when you breathe in and be mindful when you breathe out. Now, when you do this, your mind will be tranquilized. And it has the nature of bringing the calmness and bringing that serenity to your mind. So, mindfulness will lead you to practice the samadhi. Samadhi means the tranquilized nature of your mind, peacefulness in your mind. And also, as the final practice, it is the prajna or the panya in Buddhism. Prajna or panya is the realization of the true nature of life, realization of the 3 marks of existence in life. So, what are the 3 marks of existence in life? First one is anicca, the nature of impermanence. Second one is dukkha, the nature of unsatisfiedness or the nature of suffering. And the third one is anatta, the nature of non-self. Now, to do this, to realize this true nature, you need to have a good wisdom. To have good wisdom, you have to have a good practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness helps you to focus your mind into one part of your life, and it's very easy to realize the true nature, the impermanence nature, once the mind is mindful and tranquilized. It's something like this. Let's say you're traveling in a train, okay, and you see all the sceneries in a very fast paced, and it's more like a motion blurred version. We don't see the real images, okay? Everything is blurred. So to realize and to see what the real nature and the real sceneries of around us, what we have to do, we have to get down from the train. We have to come into one place and to see and to enjoy that one nature of the life. So to do that, what we have to do, we have to come into one place and to focus on one thing at a time. To do that, the mindfulness helps us. And finally, how mindfulness helps us to practice the wisdom or the prajna. So the prajna is the ability to realize the true nature of our life. The true nature of our life is the impermanence. And the true nature of the existence is these 3 marks of existence. The impermanence nature, and the suffering nature, and the non-self nature. So to realize these 3 natures, what we have, we need to have a tranquilized mind and a well-focused mind and a good awareness. So practice of mindfulness will help us to bring the awareness to our life. So that will help us to bring more wisdom and to see the life in a more wiser way and a more profound way by practicing the mindfulness. So this is how the practice of mindfulness helps us to be more productive in Buddhist practice. So let's all practice this amazing practice of mindfulness in our life.